You're live. 10 seconds.
Lurie, break it down, 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 down. She break it down, 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 down. She got a message for the people, a brilliant mind and a clean soul. She's standing up to the evil and making sure that we all grow strong enough to break these chains we in that keep us in this painful condition. She give us truth and division. That's why we listen. She break it down, 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 down.
Yes. Welcome back. You are listening to Lurie Daniel Favors on Sirius XM's Urban View, where talk empowers and becomes action. Dear white America, now you get it. You understand now? Do you really? I don't know if you really get it, but welcome to the Lurie Daniel Favors Show. We're going to make sure that you understand it today. Please make sure to like and subscribe and share this video. And also don't forget to go to my website, LurieDanielFavors.com, where you can get on my mailing list. We are putting the final touches on our online community, which will be launching in February. And those of you in the focus group, don't you worry, your email's going out this morning. I tried to get it to you this weekend, but life was life and for me as well. But you will be getting your information this morning because we have a pre-situation that we're going to do for our focus group folks. So we got a lot to unpack today. And I really am just sort of in a I told you so kind of mood. We told you so kind of mode. So forgive me if it feels a little tongue in cheek, but there's some things that I want to be really clear about. Do you guys remember a woman by the name of Kamala Devi Harris? Anybody remember Kamala Harris? Remember when Kamala Harris was talking about what Donald Trump was going to try to do if he was allowed to get back into office? Remember when outlets like The Hill and other like Axios and a number of even the progressive websites were saying that she was lying when she said that the military was going to be sent after us and that Donald Trump wanted to come after the enemy from within? Well, oddly enough, I feel like she might have been onto something. Perhaps. I don't know. I mean, let's get this clip where we've got Kamala Harris talking to us about what was going to happen if the people elected Donald Trump again. Let's take a listen.
It's a serious issue. He is saying that he would use the military to go after them. Think about this. And we know who he would target. And we know who he would target because he has attacked them before. Journalists whose stories he doesn't like. Election officials who refuse to cheat by filling extra votes and finding extra votes for him. Judges who insist on following the law instead of bending to his will. This is among the reasons I believe so strongly that a second Trump term would be a huge risk for America and dangerous. Donald Trump is increasingly unstable and unhinged. And he is out for unchecked power. That's what he's looking for. He wants to send the military after American citizens.
Wow. You know, it's this thing about being right and being able to say, I told you so. I know it's petty, but I'm a petty sister. I got a lot of petty in me, and I have petty ancestors. We now know that over the weekend, when we got news of the latest shooting in Minneapolis, and I can't even say it's the latest shooting because I just saw reports earlier today of a woman who was running away from ICE agents. I don't know if she was a part of a community watch group. We just know that she was running away from them, her hands in the air as she's running, and then she ends up falling to the side because they shot her with a non-lethal weapon, and so her hand is damaged. We see her collapse to the ground. They are proactively shooting at people, be it with lethal ammunition or non-lethal ammunition. But we also saw all of us, and if you haven't seen it yet, I'm not going to show you an image of it right now, but you look up what happened to Alex Preddy. What we now know about this 37-year-old ICU nurse who worked for the VA is that he was somebody who cared for people. We know that he had a weapon on him, which I thought I was pretty sure Americans were down with that. I was pretty sure that the NRA and that the American populace was excited about people being able to carry weapons. Remember when y'all said Barack Obama was going to take your weapons, and then you said Joseph Robinette Biden was going to take your weapons? Surprisingly, it's not that, because after Alex Peretti showed up at this community intervention where they basically observing. He had a weapon on his side, which he has a permit for. He was observing what was happening. In his hand was a camera. And as he sees another person, a woman, being shoved by ICE, she is then being pepper sprayed. He goes over to help her and puts his body between the person pepper spraying her and her. Next thing you know, he is swarmed by officers, beaten within an inch of his life. And I was like, is that a black man that they have on the ground? Because I couldn't understand what was happening. I thought it was a white man. We saw it first, but then they were beating him the way that y'all like to beat on black people. And so I thought, well, this is what is happening here. Next thing we know, we see his weapon being removed from him, and there is now enough footage, enough videos to show that the ICE agents were able to disarm that man, and then they shot 10 shots into his body, killing him. Then what was so crazy is the way the guns right activists, where were the Second Amendment activists? Where's the NRA? We now know, according to reports like the Washington Post and an article entitled "Minnesota Shooting Scrambles America's Gun Debate," the reality is they want to say that we have the right to bear arms, but the only people they want bearing the arms are the white narcissists, the nationalists, the whites, who are in alignment with Donald Trump's white narcissistic wet dreams. And so we are now in a situation where the Republican Party, a very pro-gun rights party, is weirdly and oddly saying things like, well, if you show up to a protest with a weapon that's fully armed, clearly you intended to be violent and to be dangerous, which is really weird, because I remember Kyle Rittenhouse was a whole hero for y'all. I remember when Cliven Bundy and the Bundy boys was aiming their weapons at the FBI, and they lived to tell about it. I remember when January 6th, it wasn't just what was happening at the Capitol. You had 9 other state capitals where white nationalists, white narcissists were showing up fully armed. I'm old enough to remember y'all talking about sending people with weapons to election poll sites. And what's crazy about this is we now have Kash Patel, who is the head of the FBI, him, Pamela Bondi, and all the rest of them went on the Sunday shows. They were on the news shows all weekend. You couldn't find a mainstream news channel without them on it, where they were talking about the fact that if you show up with a weapon, you are presumptively a domestic terrorist. Color me black to find out that when y'all was talking about the government wants to come and take your weapons, you were right, except you didn't acknowledge that it was your own side that was gonna do it. Take a listen to Kash Patel and his Keystone Cop ass. Let's hear what he had to say.
As Christy said, you cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have that right to break the law and incite violence. We will, of course, always protect your First Amendment speech. And if you peacefully protest, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you have seen a trend here, not just in Minnesota, but across the country, in these protests turning into violent scenarios and people attacking law enforcement. That's when you go over the line, and that's when law enforcement steps in.
Is that when law enforcement steps in? I want you all to pay attention here. Below this tweet, you can see the community note, which says, under the Second Amendment and Minnesota Statute 624.714, permit holders may legally carry firearms in public, including during protests. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that public carry is a constitutional right. Carrying a firearm does not legally constitute inciting violence. And I thought that y'all were all in agreement about that. I thought the white narcissist, I thought that was one thing that y'all could agree upon, that it is every red-blooded white American's right to own a weapon, to carry a weapon he wasn't even brandishing, and they disarmed him and then they shot him on the ground. After beating him so bad, I was confused and thought he might not be a white. Maybe he was just a light-skinned, he did black. This is the America that the white nationalists are fighting for. But what makes it really interesting is the way in which this is not so much about ICE being federal officers, so much as this is about ICE really being a private militia. I want you all to take a listen to this clip. This is a video clip. Tennessee Holler put this out. This is a video clip where they're talking about here. You're going to see one of the lead officers in the state of Minnesota. And this is the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, who is talking about the fact that his agents were blocked from participating in the investigation. We haven't learned anything much beyond Jonathan Ross's and his information and his name. That was the man who shot Renee Good. But what we now know is that ICE is effectively blocking anybody who's not ICE from participating in the investigation, even when those agencies have court orders allowing them to do so. Amina, let's take a listen to this video clip, please.
So to be clear, you said you got a signed judicial warrant to gain access and were still denied by federal agents?
Yes, that's accurate. The question was, we had a signed warrant and we were still denied access to the scene. That's accurate, correct. We took the step of getting the search warrant because we were denied access to the scene. So we thought that we'd be able to get access to the scene, much like we would anywhere else, by having an independent judge agree that we have probable cause to investigate the incident at the scene. That was provided the information to the Department of Homeland Security, and they said that this was a scene and matter being investigated by the federal government, and they would not allow us physical access to the scene.
You arrived at the scene, you were denied. You go to a judge, ask for a warrant, though. Judge grants said warrant. You show up with that, you're still denied.
That's accurate. We were denied after we provided information we had a warrant.
So wait a minute. Y'all's law enforcement. You're Minnesota State Police, right? We're not even talking about local law enforcement. You show up at a crime scene or a scene of a shooting. Let's be generous. A scene of a shooting. You show up and they tell you you can't participate in the investigation. The crime scene has not been properly cordoned off. These people who are part of ICE do not have any investigative capacity, right? Department of Homeland Security, the Keystone Cops are the ones who are doing the investigating, and the actual law enforcement who has legal jurisdiction is not allowed to participate. They go there, they are told they can't participate. They then go to court. They get a court order from a judge, an independent judge, and they're still not allowed to participate. Because the private militia done took over the scene. The same private militia that's got more weapons than the actual local police. Y'all remember what Mayor Fry said? What did he say? We got 600 officers here in Minneapolis. They got 3,000 federal agents. And now Donald Trump and Kristi Noem are coming at Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Fry talking about something. They're not helping us. They're refusing to help us. And they're like, we got 600 agents. Y'all got 3,000. Y'all outnumber us in terms of law enforcement 5-1. You've got 3,000 federal agents, and I shouldn't even call them federal agents. You got 3,000 civil servants, armed civil servants, who are functioning like a private militia, who are refusing to allow the actual law enforcement to investigate what happened to Alex Preddy. This is not federal law enforcement. This is Donald Trump's private army. This is his militia. We got to be clear about what that means. The FBI is now saying you don't have a right to show up at a protest with a weapon. If you do, you're presumptively a terrorist, a domestic terrorist. Now, what we also have not talked a lot about here on these airwaves is the fact that even when ICE shows up, it's not just ICE by themselves. We are seeing increasing reports of actual private militia, white narcissists, armed white narcissists who are accompanying ICE, who are fulfilling I'm deputizing myself into the racist war type of era. These are the people accompanying ICE. They show up when ICE is there. ICE is preventing effective actual law enforcement from participating. This is a militia. This is a militia. Now, you may recall that we've played previously clips where officers are talking about how when they are off duty, they are being arrested and harassed. I don't have time to play it right now because I want to shift gears in just a little bit. But in the podcast episode, which will be out later on today, Lurie breaks it down where we go into all of these topics way more in depth. In the podcast episode, you're going to get a chance to hear our conversation about the fact that this is a private militia. And we know that even if your local law enforcement is in agreement with you that ICE must go, local law enforcement no longer has the capacity to enforce the laws in our local communities if ICE says otherwise. I need that to sit with us for just a little bit, because what this really, it would be tragic if all we focus on is what happened to Alex Peretti. May he rest in peace. And I mean that absolutely sincerely, because what's happened to him, what's happened to Renee Good, absolutely awful and diabolical. I do want to make a quick note, however. The say her name thing that I'm seeing a lot of people doing, say his name, Alex Peretti, say her name, Renee Good, that's not for y'all. Righteous, that's not for y'all. The reason we had say her name, and the reason that people like Kimberly Crenshaw and the African American Policy Forum came up with the say her name framework was because when black women were being shot and assassinated by police, they weren't getting any of the attention. They weren't getting any of the organizing effort. And frankly, and this is not to set up a sort of a juxtaposition between what was happening when black men are shot by police and what was happening when black women were shot by police. It was simply a recognition that in addition to all of the work that we do to bring attention to what happens when black men are shot by police, we got to bring that same level of attention to black women, because it wasn't happening. Kimberly Crenshaw got a whole book about why say her name was important, working with mothers of the movement, mothers of black women who were shot and assassinated by the police. So y'all talking about say her name, Renee Good? No. Say her name, say his name, Alex Peretti? No. Y'all, we know their names. That's the point. And as Qasim Rashid says, there have been 9 people who were shot by ICE this year, and you only know the names of the 2 white ones, Renee Good and Alex Peretti. Much love and peace to them, yes. But there are 9 people that ICE has shot this month. They shot Keith Porter. Say his name, black man Keith Porter. They also shot a Cambodian named Paraday Lay. They shot 5 Latinos named Herbert Sanchez Dominguez, Victor Manuel Diaz, Luis Beltran Yanes Cruz, Luis Gustavo Nunez Caceres, and Geraldo Lunas Campos. And so at this rate, they're on pace to kill over 100 people this year. The say her name framework is not for y'all. I need y'all to stop co-opting things that ain't really for you. I need you to, the same thing y'all did with woke. I need y'all to, because if y'all had actually stayed woke, we wouldn't be in this shit. We wouldn't be in this shit. But the reality is, it's not just about the raw, naked grab for power that the ICE militia, Trump's private militia, is now engaging in. It's also about the elections. This has always been about what they can do to disrupt elections. We know that they want the Insurrection Act to be instituted, but frankly, the Insurrection Act really means that the federal military, the armed forces, would be in charge of local domestic law enforcement. It doesn't necessarily give Donald Trump the ability to do any old thing that he wants, which is why I think he keeps threatening to do it, but he ain't really did it yet, because once he does it, what we're going to have is basically the armed forces doing law enforcement. But I don't know who would be worse at law enforcement. I would suspect that ICE agents doing law enforcement is worse than the military, which is actually trained in how to engage in these sorts of affairs. But I'm not willing to put that to the test. So I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying, let's be clear. But Pam Bondi sent a letter to Minnesota officials basically saying that if they want ICE out of Minnesota, they should turn over their voter rolls. Minnesota has almost a completely evenly divided state legislature. There was one seat in the Senate in the Democrat side that gave them the power and the authority to have a Democratic-led Senate in that state. But the reality is, in this letter, on the second page of the letter, Pam Bondi says, in order for you to get ICE out of your state, a state that has less than 200,000 immigrants in it, when Texas is right there, Florida is right there, Pamela Bondi said, in order to get ICE out of your state, in addition to other other things that she wants them to address, they have to, quote, allow the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice to access voter rolls to confirm that Minnesota's voter registration practices comply with federal law as authorized by the Civil Rights Act of 1960. Fulfilling this common sense request, she calls this shit common sense. Fulfilling this common sense request will better guarantee free and fair elections and boost confidence in the rule of law. This is coming out at the same time that we learned that when Doge was in operation, then they were going to the Social Security Administration. They were also collaborating and working with private nonprofit type organizations, private loosely formed associations of people who wanted access to the Social Security information so that they would be able to manipulate state voter roll data. They want the states, the Democratic states, to turn over the voter rolls because they want to use the voter roll information as a way of disrupting the midterm elections. And so if Democrats don't want what's happening in Minneapolis to happen to their state, then basically cough up the information so that when it comes time for y'all to go to vote in the midterm elections, which are happening right now, we're going to talk about that in just a minute, they're able to do exactly what they want with them voter rolls. And they could come doing to everybody what they already did in Florida. Do you remember Florida with Governor Ron DeSantis? Remember when he created that election police force, which basically went around and arrested black people, arrested Latino people, black American people, for all of you who seem to indicate that, you know, your lineage is going to protect you. It ain't. It won't. But okay, but they had a police force, Florida's election police force, and that's not what it was officially called. I can't remember the official name of it, but they basically arrested a whole bunch of black people very publicly. It was kind of like a bad boys. They would have the cameras. They busted up in these people's houses, came to they had cookouts. They were having summertime fun, embarrassed them in front of their neighbors, and said that they voted as criminals, and said that they did not have the right to vote. Each of those cases ended up being dropped because it wasn't about the state of Florida actually having the information that said that these people have voted in a criminal fashion, meaning they did not have the legal right to vote. It was about embarrassing them and threatening anybody else who had been formerly incarcerated. If you did want to vote, you better not, because look at what might happen to you. They want to do that on the national level right before the midterm elections. And so I'm glad that America is finally waking up. I'm glad that you all are seeing what's happening, because Renee Good and Alex Peretti would be alive right now had y'all understood what we were saying with Mike Brown. They'd be alive right now had you understood when we were talking about Trayvon Martin. They'd understand right now when we were talking about Eleanor Bumpers. They'd understand right now when we were talking about all the other names that we can think of: Alton Sterling, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. And I know Ahmaud Arbery wasn't necessarily assassinated by law enforcement, but the people who assassinated and lynched him were formerly a part of law enforcement. Is a reason that it's the same thing. White vigilante narcissism is what we're talking about here. And I'm glad that people are finally getting it. And I don't have time to play this clip either, but in the podcast episode, I referenced to this clip from Hope Giselle, who talks about the fact that we're glad that y'all are finally waking up and finally understanding what's actually going on, because she says, quote, some of y'all didn't wake up because you finally understood the system. You woke up because the system finally looked like you. And that's the part nobody wants to talk about. She says, so let's talk. What made this moment different for you? Was it fear, proximity, recognition, guilt? There's no dragging here, just honesty, she says, because movements don't grow from pretending we've always been here. They grow when people admit that they weren't. So sit with that before you respond. And I just don't have time to play the clip right now. I play it in the podcast, so I encourage you to take a listen to it, because she goes off and she says some things that need to be said. But we're also in a moment right now where we're all having to sort of reassess how we show up, to realign, and to figure out how we're going to move forward. And one of the things that's going to have to be a part of this rebuild era, this era to remake the aftermath of whatever this current fugaziness is going to have to be that black people, we're going to have to stop shucking. Let me not say it that way. That's the wrong way to say it. We're going to have to start fully showing up as who we are everywhere, unapologetically and unabashedly. And I want to shift a little bit, because while it might feel like we're going into a different topic, this is actually an extension of the same one. Keith Edwards is one of the many progressives who seems to have an issue with Jasmine Crockett. He believes that she's far too polarizing. He does not believe that she has a chance to win the Senate race. Now, you all know I have interviewed Jasmine Crockett on this show multiple times. In fact, it was on this show where she indicated that she was considering a Senate launch. Well, you know that I have interviewed James Talarico. I think both of them as candidates for the Senate position in the state of Texas are good candidates, and Texas would be done well by all of them. I do also note for the record that Jasmine Crockett has a more extensive record. I do also note for the record that a whole lot of y'all had issue with Jasmine Crockett because you were sitting in my mentions talking about how she was affiliated with AIPAC. And even if she wasn't affiliated with AIPAC, did she take money from AIPAC? Did AIPAC like her? We know that AIPAC didn't like her because Lurie went online and was able to pull up at opensecrets.org Jasmine Crockett's donation record. And we know that AIPAC don't donate to Jasmine Crockett, but y'all sat in our mentions. And by our, I mean people who were telling you the truth about what was happening in this race. Y'all sat in our mentions and talked about AIPAC, Jasmine Crockett, AIPAC. And yet, over the weekend, when we got pictures of James Talarico at AIPAC events from a couple of years ago, where they were like so excited to have James Talarico there, and James Talarico was excited to support the organization, I ain't see none of y'all say shit about AIPAC and James Talarico. Isn't it interesting how we always want to have a higher standard for black people than we do for actual people, for other people? I'm just saying it's important. Gary Chambers had some things to say about this, and I want us to be crystal clear that in this new era, as we're figuring out how we're going to move forward, what we ain't doing is moving backwards with y'all by acting like we are not going to show up as who we truly are. Gary Chambers had some things to say. I want you all to take a listen to this, because the reality is it's a whole lot of black people out there right now in the state of Texas who are considering who to vote for in this special election, and you're being persuaded by white progressives like a Keith Edwards who are excited to tell you that Jasmine Crockett is too polarizing, that she can't win. Meanwhile, they keep trying to run these mamby-pamby ass moderates, and they lose all the time. I need us to be clear about the connection to this, because when black people show up as who we really are unapologetically, it makes a lot of y'all nervous. And because of y'all's nervousness and the way that we as black people have been epigenetically trained to center your comfort, we will often back up, but we ain't backing up no more. Take a listen to Gary Chambers as he breaks this down. This is an important one, y'all. Focus. Let's hear it.
So Keith Edwards said this on Higher Learning.
Do you think a black woman can win a U.S. Senate seat in Texas? Yes. I think Jasmine Crockett has a hard time. I think that's the difference. I actually think a black woman with the right politics and who is truly not polarizing, because I think that's part of Jasmine Crockett's brand, is that she's a polarizing figure.
So as a black man who is often considered polarizing, controversial, I don't think that this is unique to black women, number one. I think that when black candidates are running for a statewide office, we are told that we can't win, and then there's a list of reasons why we can't. Jasmine Crockett here, who is a law school graduate, who's been a practicing attorney, who has been a member of the state legislature in Texas, who is now a member of Congress from Texas, is being said that she cannot win statewide. But Tallarico, who does not have the resume that Crockett has, is being said that he can win because he's less polarizing. Really, it's just because he's white. It's just because he's white. When people like Keith Edwards say this, it means that the black person is too authentically black for white people that they go into circles with and have conversations with to be able to digest. They want us to downplay ourselves. But here's the kicker. America does not like bland, moderate, bullshit politicians. Donald Trump is the president because you continue to try to give America a moderate version of politics when we want polarizing. We want people who take a fucking position. We want people who are not afraid to stand up and fight. Because you know what most Americans realize? That audacity and bravado actually moves the ball forward, and people who are mealy-mouthed moderates tend to do nothing to help the American people. It's that simple, Keith.
Now, let's pause here for just a second, because I think this is an important point. And the reality is a lot of y'all are perfectly willing to recognize that you was wrong months after the fact. A lot of y'all are perfectly willing to acknowledge, oh, my God, we should have listened to black people. If we don't listen to black people, we could have addressed police violence. And now that police violence is federalized into a private militia. Oh, my God, we should have listened to black people. You should have listened to black people a long time ago. Y'all always a day late and a dollar short. Y'all always come to the party trying to figure out what happened when we've been told you what was going to happen 11 years ago. I'm going to say this. Y'all need to start listening to black people at the beginning when we tell you up front from the, don't let a Renee Good and Alex Peretti have to be what causes you to listen. That's so classic white nationalist. It's so classic white narcissist. Y'all be wrong on everything. We tell you exactly who you are. We tell you exactly how y'all going to move. You do it and then you mess up and then you come back wanting us to teach you something. Wanting us to explain some things to you, when the reality is you need to be listening to black people from the beginning. And here's the part about it that really hurts, is that sometimes as black people, again, because of the way that we were epigenetically conditioned in this society to center whiteness. And I have written extensively about how maintaining white people's comfort is a survival skill. On a plantation, if you could not make white people feel comfortable, baby, that could be the end of your life. Your family could be sold away. Today, if you can't make white people feel comfortable, white people with white nationalists and narcissistic underpinnings, you might be Alex Peretti. Okay. So we are crystal clear about how these people move. But one of the things that we have to challenge ourselves as black people is in recognizing that their fears should not any longer cause us to shift what we know is right. There's a lot of black people who are thinking and saying things like, well, I want to vote for Jasmine Crockett, but I don't think the white people are going to vote for her. Stop doing what you know is not the right thing for you to do out of trying to play some whack ass effort or approach at 3D checkers chess / space. Stop trying to like 3D do this shit. If you know that Jasmine Crockett is going to be a better candidate for you, a better fighter for you, if you know she doesn't have any of the AIPAC baggage that a lot of y'all was trying to label her with, then vote for the candidate who is going to be the fighter that you want them to be. And don't vote for the candidate that you think that the mealy-mouthed white moderate is going to vote for. The white moderates are voting for the white nationalist party. Ain't nothing you can do about that except show up at the polls. Now, this is why this matters. Because in the state of Texas, if black voters did that, black voters can win. Amina, let's get that second clip. I want you all to hear what Gary Chambers says about how black people should be moving in this moment. Take a listen.
What we as black people need to do is stop buying into the same logic, because it's not just Keith Edwards. It's black people who regurgitate the same type of BS, who don't believe in the brilliance and the power of black people, but you think that the white man's ice is colder. And they use words like polarizing, controversial. They find all kind of buzzwords to say niggas. Niggas. We don't like the nigga shit y'all do. We don't like that you're black. We don't like that you're a little urban with the way that you say things. We want you to talk in a way that makes us feel comfortable. But you know what? Making Keith Edwards feel comfortable is why America's where it's at right now, because of moderate white people. Dr. King told you about moderate white people 50, 60 years ago. We're still fighting the same battle with moderate white people who will say progressive shit as long as the candidate's white. All you got to do is use cannabis legalization.
Let's pause it right there, because what he's saying there is so important. He goes on to give some really good examples with cannabis legalization, and then I play some more of the clip later on in the podcast. But when he goes into this conversation about polarizing candidates, he lists a whole bunch of black people who were not polarizing, who did not win their races. They were, and not to say that there was anything wrong with these black people, because there wasn't, but the fact that you had a whole lot of black people who have gone and run as being very palatable, who Cheryl Beasley in North Carolina for the state legislature, I'm sorry, for the judiciary, Val Demings in the state of Florida, Colin Allred. Y'all got a whole bunch of black people who were considered far more palatable than some of the more polarizing ones, and they lost their races as well. We ain't winning no more by playing safe. We're going to have to go balls to the walls when it comes to centering us, because we have for centuries been forced to center them, their needs, their issues, their concerns, and the reality is, look at where we're at. And I get it. A lot of that was survival skills, and I understand it. But as we are evolving in this moment, as we are recognizing who we truly are and connecting with the history that is going to free us so that we can build a future that will be able to manifest that freedom, as we're doing all of that, let's shake off this willingness or this socialization that has us being willing to sacrifice the fighters that we know will have our best interests and going with the mealy mouth option. And not to say that James Tallarico is mealy mouth, but just to say y'all didn't have none of the smoke on it when it came to AIPAC for him that y'all did for Jasmine Crockett. You anti-black voters. Y'all didn't have none of that smoke. Y'all held her to such a high standard, and she's got more qualifications than he does. And I'm not, he's a good dude. I think he's very important for white Christians. I think he's made a lot of good points. And again, either of these candidates, if they win, they're going to do a good job. It's just curious to me that one of the pathways to victory seems to center in demoralizing and destabilizing attacks as against black people, when quite frankly, we've been new, we've been right, y'all been wrong, and now the whole world can see it. Now, it's unfortunate that it took all this. It really is. And my heart breaks for that man's family, for Renee Good's family. It's absolutely disgusting what's happening right now. But we told you this was exactly what they were going to do. They told us this was exactly what they were going to do. They wrote it in a book, which I still have a copy of, both on my laptop and my phone, so I can whip it out at any point. The Mandate for Leadership, Project 2025. This was all a part of it. We've got videos of children screaming and hollering at ICE detention centers. We've got videos of people literally sitting in what looks exactly like and feels exactly like concentration camps. And we told you this was going to happen. So now you want to listen? Now you get it? Now you understand it? Too little, too late, unfortunately. But let's stop making the same mistake. Let's stop acting like y'all's inaccuracies and errors are not the very thing that we're suffering from right now. Had you listened to black people in the beginning, we wouldn't be here right now. And that's one of the reasons why this is as tragic as it is. It's also disgusting because this was fully preventable. We're going to hold it here and get ready to go to commercial break. Please do not forget to go to my website, LurieDanielFavors.com. Sign up for the mailing list. Our community, our online community, Sankofa Connections, will be launching in February on the anniversary of my show. Not February the 1st. My show anniversary is technically the 15th, but that's a Sunday. So on Monday the 16th is when my Sankofa Connections community will be opening up. Go to LurieDanielFavors.com. Scroll down to the bottom. Get on the mailing list. You're not going to get a whole bunch of email from me because I don't believe in spamming you. So you ain't even gonna get one email from me until we are launching and letting you know that here's the link to become a part of the community. So we're gonna hold it right there. YouTube, we appreciate you. Urban View, 866-801-8255. 866-801-TALK is the number. YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so we can guide the algorithms into the direction they need to flow in.